You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. Welcome to Java OffHeap episode 63. Hey everyone, we're here back with our usual suspects, and this is going to be like a fun hacking episode. So for those who are tuning in for the first time, my name is Freddie Gimme. I'm one of the co-hosts here at the Java OffHeap. I'm a principal engineer at Expedia, speaker, author, and Seattle Java user group co-organizer and Java champion. And I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hey everybody, this is Bob Paulin, independent consultant from Chicago, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, CJUG board chair.
I'm Josh Juno. I'm Java EE and Jakarta EE developer by day, also Oracle database administrator by day, author and open source coder by night, Apache NetBeans committer, JCP member, CJUG board member.
I am Michael Manella, Director of Software Engineering on the Spring team for VMware, author, speaker, chairman of the Reactive Foundation board, Java champion, curmudgeon at large.
Yeah, somebody got promoted, and he's wearing a black hat for the hacking episode. So what's going on?
I don't want to pause this, but I should go and I should be wearing a DEF CON t-shirt for this episode.
Oh, that's right. You do.
You wore that for the prep session. So if you wore it, we know you do laundry every day. So
the battery's dead, but here's a DEF CON badge. How about that?
There you go.
DEF CON 18, baby, right here.
We got legit experience in this domain. So
yep. Got a couple other badges behind the monitors.
All right. But before we dive in, we wanted to thank our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 450 technologies, including AWS services, Docker, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility into your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed traces, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. Again, that URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. We thank them for sponsoring this episode and keeping the beers flowing. All right. So down to it, I guess. First is news. Josh?
I'll just go ahead and start off with Jakarta EE 9.1 is released. This is pretty big news because now us Java EE and Jakarta EE developers can get off Java 8. Jakarta EE 9.1 is JDK 11. So that was a big move for 9.1. And looking forward to Jakarta EE 10, they're looking for JDK 17 support.
Right, another LTS. That's interesting. I wonder, are they going to even try to do any of the what do they call the feature releases, or they're just going to go from LTS to LTS from now on?
That's a good question. I mean, I suppose you could call 9.1 kind of a feature release because 9.0 was really the big. I don't know. To be honest with you, I can't really speak intelligently on LTS or not. So I'm not quite sure what the model is going to be yet. I suspect though that Jakarta EE 10 is going to be sometime early next year, is my guess. I don't think that there's a release date.
That likely going to be on 17, Java 17.
That's
since
correct.
The new Java LTS will be out. Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think what I do here is in 11, going up, after you make that big jump, it's not as bad to do the upgrades. So
yeah. And the only thing I can say to 9.1 is there's not a lot of containers that work with it yet. It'll be built up over time here, but right now it's kind of a little bit bleak in that area. But
I see, and probably like the next news item is probably related to that as well, right?
Yeah. So GlassFish 6.2 has been released, and that is definitely Java 11 and Jakarta EE 9.1. So that works with GlassFish 6.2. Now, I just want to say that there was a blog post by Steve Milich of Pyara, and rightfully so, he did say that GlassFish is not something you should run in production. And it's true, because the reason
in general, or this version, like
I think
that's a really broad statement that I would love to get definitive on.
I think it's kind
of the spring man.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's kind of a general statement, because they don't provide security updates or whatnot for GlassFish any longer. It's just kind of a point release.
That's the RIs, right? Like that is. I always thought that
is the RI.
reference implementation of the spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It is. So, I mean, that's going to be the bleeding edge. And, but, I'm waiting for Pyara probably to support 9.1 before I move forward. So, but GlassFish 6.2 is out, so you can go and grab it and start doing your demos or whatever you'd like to do with it. If you want to go in production, I didn't ask you to do it or tell you to do it. But some good news also is that I just saw on Twitter today or yesterday, 6.2 works with JDK 17 on some builds. So they are working on that, and they're looking to make it work with JDK 17. It sounds like right out of the gate. So
that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty big for the EE community, big time.
Now, Michael, does Spring have a new release around 17 as well that's coming up this fall, or how is...
Well, so keep in mind, 17 is coming out. Is it this fall or next fall?
I thought it was this fall.
You're right. It's this fall. So Spring is not doing a major. So we are in the planning phases of Framework 6. So it will be the next generation. We are not releasing that this year. It will be next year. And so Framework 6, Boot 3, all that will be next year. As far as the baselines and all that, to be transparent, we're still figuring it out.
Okay.
Well, as soon as I know and I can talk about it, the show will know.
Sounds good.
All right. Next one. Who was this?
So I put this one on here as well, and you or someone else may be able to speak more intelligently about it, but GraalVM 21.1.0 is out. Main reason I put it on there is because there is experimental support for Java 16. So I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, since existing Graal is just 8 or 11.
Right.
Right. So that's interesting, though, because 16 is not an LTS. So I don't know if maybe it's just prep work to get ready for 17, which is expected to be.
I'm pretty sure you're right with that. Related to that, Spring Native, Josh, anything else on that release?
No, I'm not. Like I said, I don't know enough about it. So. Yep. Yep.
Related to that, Spring Native, which is the Spring extensions for Graal natively compiled applications with Spring, went 0.10 shortly after that. It is based on Spring Boot 2.5 and GraalVM 21.1. So this release that you were just talking about. The big feature for this, big features, number one, we're introducing native testing. So being able to actually run JUnit tests in against your native code. As well as ahead of time proxies for classes. Up until now, the only proxying you'd be able to do is on interfaces. And now we can actually do CGlib style proxies at compile time to enable using those types of proxies with your Spring applications. So check it out.
Great. Wow, no, it's nice. A big deal for me. I know I've got some Lambdas some clients are working on that we're using Spring to push out and being able to make those native.
Yeah.
Hey, seriously, feedback. Appreciate it. Let us know.
We'll take a look.
Please.
There's a service that I have that is CPU bound. And I've been like this past 2 weeks, I've been sort of like looking for optimizations and figuring out what to do. And essentially the easy stuff has been taken care of. Like essentially is that don't do silly things like convert dates to string all the time and like go through a list instead of a map. So now that I'm getting pushed to the next things that I can do to make it more efficient is getting harder. So now it might be a good time. It is a Spring app, but it's not. I don't think it's not on 2.5. So, but it's started to be worth to taking a look because now the new optimizations are going to be expensive. Maybe it is a good time to like take a peek at how it works with Spring Native.
I mean, that's the thing is if you can get away with native compiled code and that's a delivery platform that works for you, it's kind of your get out of jail free card for most performance issues. Like it's faster, it's more efficient in most cases. Like, don't get me wrong, IO is the one gotcha there. Like it is not going to improve IO bound operations. Java is incredibly performant in that anyways. Mm-hmm. So like in my wheelhouse batch, one of the things I want to do this year is do some benchmarks, native versus traditional Java, because I'm not expecting to see a big difference there because those are typically IO bound.
Right. I mean, the big savings I've seen is the cold start problem, and that is very noticeable still on AWS with Lambdas. If you're got something that's starting up from scratch, I mean, it just takes a while. I mean, you can have reserved instances where it's just they keep them warm for you, but you're paying for that. So.
Yep. And kind of defeats the purpose of having them as functions in the first place.
Yes, it does. So, that's the ability to do that obviously makes the Lambda story a lot better.
Yep.
And my experience with using some of the native stuff is like, yeah, you can do it, but there's a lot of limitations. There's a lot of things you have to, annotations and hints you got to add to the code to make it work. But the further every iteration, it seems to get better, and that's the hacky stuff seems to go away more. So
I will be fully transparent here. The CGlib class level proxying stuff. It is a new annotation you got to use.
It ain't pretty then, but it works.
Exactly. Yeah. Before it wasn't even possible.
Right.
One of the drivers for this was actually Spring Batch with our custom scopes. We need to be able to proxy literally any interface that's slapped on whatever class you returned.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Michael, if you would have said it's XML, then I would have been upset. But annotation.
Nothing wrong with
I have had a conversation about XML today about XML support with Spring. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Moving on. Conferences.
Wait. What did you say? What are those? Conferences. I seem to remember these things that we used to go to.
It rings a bell.
A year and a half ago, there was people there.
Things are fading. I don't remember. This is the only meeting I communicate. You
said the C word. I got excited.
But yes, conferences are coming back online. Hopefully, as things are trying to start to be back to normal. They're definitely not, but we're making progress. Some conferences has been announcing that they'll be having in-person meetings or in-person conferences again, right? I guess the first one we don't know yet exactly what's going on with Oracle Code 1. Did they even declare the intent yet? Like if they want to do in person?
I haven't heard anything on it. I guess that's the
crickets.
That's the interesting thing about it is usually for Code 1, we know about it by now.
Usually the CFP is done by now, isn't it?
Right. There's the Calfo papers. Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what.
I think it's on the list just because it's sort of an interesting omission.
Has anybody heard? Basically.
Yeah, no, I think that's what it is because I don't.
We should reach out to the champions list.
Yeah, and see if there's anything.
We might know a Java champion or two that we can.
When you go to the Code 1 website, it's we are excited to stay connected with you online and look forward to reuniting at physical events in 2021. It's like, okay, all right. And
it is funny.
I'm not sure if they.
What else you got?
It's here. New Year's was about 6 months ago. So if you're from Oracle and you're listening, An update would be nice.
Give us a hint.
We like our annual trip out to San Francisco. It's been a while since we've seen you.
Well, it was supposed to be Vegas.
Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. It's supposed to be Vegas. Right. Well, Vegas.
It was supposed to be.
I like Vegas.
Vegas is fine.
Yeah. I can probably sell Vegas a whole lot easier than I can sell San Francisco, to be honest.
Yeah. No, like the only problem with San Francisco was lodging was.
Well, it's all
when you pick the tenderloin, dude. That's
the only thing.
That's your choice. That's your choice.
$100 per day, and it's like,
check your privilege, Michael. You're coming from someone that gets their lodging paid for by somebody other than themselves.
I mean,
well, no. My simple statement is, don't blame the lodging in the place you chose to pick. Like if you like. You knew what you were signing up for. You knew what you were signing up for.
Because I could do airport, or I don't even know if I could do airport. But yeah, no, it was just everything else was booked, and everything else was.
That wasn't always it. Everything that was booked, we wanted to pay for it. So
yeah.
It's fine. Right. We survived. We're still alive. We made it.
It's like what doesn't kill you make you stronger type of deals.
Good stories.
I wonder.
If you catch either of these guys at a bar at a conference one day, ask them about the tender.
Oh yeah. The only time Bob has been afraid. That is.
I need more beer for this. All right. What's next? Who's actually having a conference this year that we can get excited about?
Yeah, no. So KCDC, I guess they did announce that they're going to have an in-person meeting or in-person conference, right?
Yeah. No, I think they did September 16th to the 18th. I think the call for papers presentations just closed for that one. But I think they're moving into the phase where you can start buying tickets soon, I think.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah. So that's cool. A good one. Kansas City.
Yeah, that's not too far. Kansas City. We know Billy is involved, I think, in the conference committee on that. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the 15th through the 17th, if that's not what I said, of September. I think it's this other website gave me the wrong dates, but 15th to the 17th. It says their call for speakers on their website. It's still open. Is there? Oh, no, it's closed. If you click on the link, it's closed. I thought I remember seeing the tweet for that, but you can get tickets. So if you're in the area, they've got good food. We know people there. Good conference, a lot of fun. Check it out.
Reasonable prices.
Yeah, definitely. It's more along you'll spend probably under $1,000, including lodging.
Yeah. All right. The next one, I guess that's you, Bob, right?
Oh, yes. So ApacheCon, although that one, unfortunately, is not in person. So ApacheCon they've split it up into two conferences. So there's an ApacheCon at home, which is the basic one for the EU and North America. That's the September 21st through the 23rd. It's virtual. And then they also have an ApacheCon Asia, which is focused more on the China region where Apache has been growing quite significantly. If you look at the incubator and the intake of projects, there's a lot of projects coming from the Asia Pacific area. So they've got their own conference now, and that's August 6th to August 8th. So those are coming up. They're online. You can get tickets and learn what's going on new at the ASF. The call for presentations, I believe, is already over. So a lot of the schedules are up and published, and definitely check them out.
Yeah.
Nice. And then I'll mention EclipseCon. That's a virtual event. It's going to be held October 25th through the 28th. And so the program announcement should be up soon. The website is up and running, so you can go and check it out.
Awesome.
Call for papers is still going on for that, but I don't know how much longer.
Yeah. And
next to mine. So Reactive Summit. It's a virtual event. So all things reactive put on by the Reactive Foundation. CFP. By the time we get this published, will be wrapping up, if not wrapped up. But it'll be November 2nd and 3rd, 5 hours each day. So single track. I think we're charging $10. It's basically just to make sure you show up kind of thing. So definitely check it out. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, Spring One. So Spring One, September 1st and 2nd, all things spring. It'll be another virtual event, 5 tracks, 2 days, plus workshops. I believe it's free again. So definitely check that out. Be some good big announcements this year. And yeah.
I just want to mention that last year was my first Spring One, and it was virtual, of course, and I thought it was really good. So yeah, you should definitely.
From the Jakarta guy. That's awesome.
That's a good one.
It's a record now.
Seriously.
Lots of great sessions, lots of good material.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
We need to get you there physically.
Yes. I'd go. It would definitely be worth it.
We need to get all you guys there physically.
Yeah, I know. No, maybe there's a way we can.
I think there's going to be an appetite for going to conferences after all this is over. I know I've got some pent up desire to do a little bit of travel.
I've said for a while, I miss my hugs.
Yeah, it's like, when are you going somewhere? Just leave the house.
Yes. No, even my wife's like, when?
Cool.
All right.
The next one was mine. Lightbend. They've got a new CEO. So Mark Brewer, who used to be the CEO of Lightbend, he was actually ex SpringSource, so a little close to home. He is no longer the CEO, and Lightbend has promoted who was the CTO, Jonas. Jonas was somebody who was behind the Reactive Manifesto and as close to the name in the reactive space as you can get. And he is now Lightbend's new CEO. So congratulations to Jonas in that case.
Right. That's interesting. Lightbend's been in the news a lot recently. And
yep.
A lot of it's just kind of that does make me ask, kind of what's going on. So they're getting, the very first time last year it was, hey, we're getting funding. And then it was, hey, they're doing a riff. Now it's a new CEO. There have been other movements. Victor, give me a minute. Let me think up his name. I'm drawing a blank on his, Victor. He was the lead of reactive streams for the foundation. He has also stepped away from Lightbend as well. I don't know the details of where he went or why or anything. But yeah, and so with that, there's a new lead for the reactive streams project. But yeah. You'd think it's a time to kind of capitalize on the news. You've got Scala 3 out. And while Lightbend did their rebranding to get away from just, the whole, hey, we only do Scala,
right.
bit.
Yep.
There's I'm just trying to wait to see, where they're kind of taking it to kind of stay relevant in the enterprise space. Cause I know that was, hey, we're going to try to attack it. And I've looked briefly at Scala 3 and I'm trying to find the use case that me as more an enterprise developer is going to latch onto and say, okay, this is ready for me to bring into, an organization that's going to keep this code around for 20 plus years. And I haven't seen it yet.
That's what we want. The other thing. So that's what we want to focus on from the Reactive Foundation. Mm-hmm. So the Reactive Foundation, that's my main driver as chairman of the Reactive Foundation, is really pushing that enterprise use case. And so talking about, a good example of this that we're working on is sample architectures, right? The things that you can see how reactive solves real enterprise problems, right? And one that's top of mind for me, at least, is mobile. Using RSocket to address the connectivity issues and whatnot. And so that's where I see this going. That's where I would like that's where I want the foundation to push to. And so hopefully we'll be seeing more of that over the course of the year.
Yeah. And I have seen a lot of organizations with successful things built around some of the foundation, like Akka. I have current work with a client that uses Play on some of their internal applications. So, I've seen it in the enterprise, and a lot of them are using Java as the main language to code in where the core is kind of built on Scala. So
I haven't seen a lot of Scala, but our socket seems to be kind of the real thing that seems to be getting adoption from what I've seen for the most part, at least at the enterprise level, right? When we talk about, reactive programming is hard. I'm not going to mix words on it. Like that. It's trade-offs. But it does solve certain problems. Like there are certain problems that are much harder to solve without reactive systems. Now, do you need to go to Scala and change languages to do that? I mean, we're a Java podcast, so I'm not going to like that's, you can do the same things in Java. Like I'm not a big, you're not going to get me to sell that one way or the other, but I do think that there are certain use cases that reactive technologies can be useful for in the enterprise. And so, like I said, that's where the foundation is going to be pushing going forward.
No, it is interesting because like I'm trying to figure out, right? Like just looking at the Scala pockets that we have, we do have some, but now they're mostly on testing or around test frameworks, like we run Gatlin. And that is almost like a Scala first type of deal. So yeah, and the thing is that it's in the enterprise it's hard to, because like one of the things that we always have conflicts with is like even minor versions of the Scala library creates headaches for us trying to, if we happen to have two projects that are using Scala and we need to sort of bring them together for whatever reason. Either as dependencies or whatnot. God, that it hurts. So maybe that's the new CEO's purpose, is trying to give them enlightenment on where Lightbend's gonna go. So wish them luck. We love to see more Lightbend.
Jonas, we'd love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm game.
So,
all right.
Next one. I don't know which one of us dropped this, but
I think I did actually.
We all got like,
but I think
we all read it.
Yeah. We all got shell shocked. So
there goes our copy paste code.
Yep, Stackoverflow purchased. So so I don't know much about the company that bought it, but I mean, 1.8 billion.
That's what blows me away. So two things that blow me away there. Number one, that Stack Overflow is worth almost $2 billion. And number two, that Process, the company I've never heard of, actually has $2 billion to spend on that in the first place.
We have this pile of cash.
Like, what should we do with it?
None of this.
That site we copy and paste all our code from? Let's just buy it.
I mean, seriously, don't get me wrong. Like the right company, brilliant move. I know nothing about Process. Yeah. Like I haven't like. So full disclosure, Process it's technology investors. It's a VC. Yeah. It's a VC company. Yeah. I don't know if it's what is it? Is it what are they? SAGs? SAG? Is that the right acronym for public companies that are designed to buy other companies? I don't know if they're one of those, but I mean, this is a VC firm for lack of a better way of putting it. But yeah, this was
like to be fair, like I guess I didn't realize how big the business model for Stack Overflow is. Like what do they do? Like they have an enterprise product, right?
Well, I mean, I think it's mostly ads, right? You get a lot of eyeballs on people going to the site. I mean, so when you look at job postings is probably the biggest.
Oh, that's right.
You also see tool companies and technology service companies advertising on it. But yeah, I think that's the play the main driver as far as the money and to your point. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so I still have a hard time believing $1.8 billion for Stack Overflow. Like that multiplier has got to be through the roof. Like
I don't know, because I don't think Stack Overflow is not a public company, so I don't.
No, you're right. We don't. And neither is the company that bought them.
what that is. So, and a lot of times, again, when you get private money coming in and buying it, a lot of times they are trying to optimize it again. They'll flip it and they'll sell it. And so, I mean, it really depends on what's going to happen here. Cause I mean, I would hate to see all of that content go to waste. I mean, if they...
Maybe they'll just start charging for all
Okay, hold on. Who remembers the server exchange? Who remembers?
I remember that.
Heck yeah.
One of my front pages.
That's how I started. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But where is it now? Like
nowhere.
Because remember, like what happened is they got all this content and then they start monetizing. Like you had to pay to see the remember, they start showing like I still remember the date and I hated it so much where they show the answers where it was sort of like fuzzy it out. Like, and I don't know, like if they did that, I don't think it was CSS. It was just like a picture for the fuzzy it out responses.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you want to access the content, you have to pay for a subscription.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
thinking.
I mean, Indeed, which is a company that like job postings are what they do, and they do it well. Like that's I'd argue that's a pretty good job board. Now, granted, this was 2012, so it's almost 10 years ago. They sold for $1 billion then, but that's all they did. Like that was their focus. Stack Overflow, it's the sidebar that everybody ignores. I mean, like I'm still where I would love to see their books. I cannot believe that the multi-empire makes sense here.
People ignore Google sidebars too. I ignore it every time I go to the search engine. Everything that has ad by it, I just scroll past until I don't see that. But the fact of the matter is you have people that pay to place it there. Yeah. And I mean, if you knew that you're getting millions, I think it's fair to say millions of developer eyeballs on that impression, that's how advertisement sells, is impression. And so it's not too far-fetched that an ad company can get that. I mean, look at Google. That's by far above, Stack Overflow. But I think we're talking when you say, oh, well, compared to Google, $2 billion valuation is nothing.
It's also like it's interesting for the technology side, like the amount of data that they have, like what are the technologies that are being searched for? What are the things that are like trouble spot? Like just in terms of like breadth of just statistics on how people are using Stack Overflow, there's probably like something unique in like that is unique.
Well, but the thing though with that is it's all public. Right. You can download an XML feed or an XML dump of Stack Overflow. I've done a talk using it before. So this was a few years ago. I built a recommendation engine, and the demo I did was Stack Overflow offers you an XML dump of all of the data on the site.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ads excluded, obviously. But and then I rebuilt Stack Overflow for myself.
Like you wouldn't.
And the demo I was doing was I was recommending, okay, you answer this question. How about these other ones that you might want to recommend that or answer that are similar, right? And so I built that site as a demo, but all the data is available. There's nothing.
But then it's not talking about necessarily the data, like the questions and answers, not so much as that, but like Michael went and searched for this and Michael went and searched for that, not necessarily Michael, but like user A did this searches or this question is
profiles and stuff.
Yeah, there's probably data there. I mean, and there's money in data right now. I mean, people are looking for that where they can associate a profile with an actual customer persona, which maybe that is what they're going for. Because I think if you change the business model, let's say you paywall Stack Overflow,
or paid,
I think it dies. I mean, and something else takes its place.
We see it.
Why Stack Overflow is Stack Overflow. It is public and open.
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, though, to your point, Bob, with data being king these days, the idea that you could use Stack. So IT recruiting is a very lucrative market, right? Like there is no site better. If you're looking to build an engine to drive that recruiting, there is no better site to buy for the data, period, on the internet.
Or for that type of technical.
Exactly. For that type of data of this developer uses these technologies in this way. Like there is no way to get that better data than to buy Stack Overflow and build on it.
So why didn't
and so if that's what they're doing, then it probably is worth $2 billion. Like maybe that link is what I get. That makes sense.
And even just plain queries like what is the most popular language out there? I'm sure Stack Overflow could give you a pretty good idea.
Well, they do.
Based upon all that stuff.
Yeah, they do that.
Yep.
Yeah. So and they created also like so much goodwill, right? Like people are actively contributing. It's a community as well. So,
still waiting to break 20,000 in rep.
You got to answer more.
I do. I think I still need a couple more answers. I haven't been answering a ton in a while, but I need to answer a couple more key questions to push me over that edge.
Yeah, no, that is it. Hopefully, they steer it well and they don't. The process, don't screw the push. Don't open the golden goose. Don't kill the golden goose. Let it lay eggs.
use the data.
Yes, you can use the data. See how the goose lays the egg, but don't kill it. All right, now to I guess for today's main course, we're thinking of talking about hacks. So I guess there's two news that came in that is very big. The first one was the Colonial pipeline, cyber attack. So for that one, what happened was there was ransomware that got into the Colonial pipeline's IT systems, and the Colonial pipeline is essentially oil pipeline or petroleum pipeline that essentially feeds the East Coast. And what happened was that the ransomware is interesting if you never learn about how ransomware works. Is that what they do is they encrypt. Essentially, they do essentially encrypt the contents of your hard drives, of all your storage, and essentially,
or make you believe they did.
Or true.
There have been plenty of examples where they didn't actually do the encryption; they just made you believe they did.
Yeah, and the problem is that these are usually very cryptographically secure ciphers when they do it, and if you lose essentially the private key, there is no way for you to really decrypt it. Doesn't matter how many years you try to decrypt it. And essentially, the ransomware, allegedly says, if you don't pay us this many bitcoins, we'll just delete the key and it'll be forever gone. So what happens is that it's interesting too, because one of the things that you need to watch out for is that the ransomware will encrypt your files, and if you have backups that are running, they will back up your encrypted files, and if the ransomware runs long enough, essentially, without you knowing about it, usually the way backups work is like you expire them after a certain period, like a month, 2 months, and if you've been running, if your ransomware has been like running throughout this period where you don't have any backups that were not encrypted, you're actually also SOL because everything you have is encrypted, including your backups. So that is like one of the things that it's interesting because the weapon when it's used correctly, like the technology when it's used correctly, it is very hard to break. So what happened was the Colonial pipeline said, no, we need to like shut down, and I think a lot of the argument was like they didn't know who to bill or like how the reimbursements will occur or who needs to get what. So they needed to shut down essentially the pipeline until they figure out and straighten out like, okay, how do we, who do we need to send oil to? How much do they owe us to continue doing business? And that essentially created this ripple wave of disruptions through the East Coast and a lot of Florida man stories, but we don't get into those today. And it is something that we're starting to see more and more. It used to be rare to see most of the time it was
at least. At least you didn't hear about it. I mean, things I heard about from the, There have been ransomware attacks, I feel, for a very long time, but you often didn't hear about them publicly. And I think some of that is, and I don't remember, I think it was Michael that said this during the prep session. It's just the impact is so much greater now.
Yeah. So ransomware obviously has been around for many, many, many years, hitting, our moms or our grandmothers, laptops, with ransomware for them to got a check for $1,000 or something like that has been around for, a decade or more. The big thing with this though, is they're hitting bigger targets. They're hitting more public targets. And it's harder to hide. They're hitting targets that you can't just sweep under the rug anymore.
Right.
And what's even more interesting is, you always tell your mom or your grandma or whatever, don't pay. Like, we'll figure this out. Make them, make sure they're running, time machine on their Mac or whatever. And you'll be fine. The pipeline one, they paid a lot of money. They paid, I forget what the total amount they paid.
They recouped $2 million, but it was more than that, right?
Well, so the interesting thing about that is what they recouped. The value has dropped because they paid in exactly. They paid in Bitcoin. They recovered 63.7 Bitcoin, but the value has dropped since they paid significantly. So because of that, like, here's your 63.7 Bitcoin back. It ain't worth what it was before. But
a topic for another episode. I do
completely. Yes, completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened is they were able to recover a good chunk of it. And I mean, a lot of the profile of what this is common. It's the stereotypical Russian hacker. We used to do, when I worked at a previous security company, we used to joke around. We're like, the hacking laws are so lax in Russia. It's almost like the laws are so lax. Your chance of getting caught are so slim. And if they do, it's a slap on the wrist compared to what you're getting paid. Mm-hmm. Want to move to Russia and try this out? The hackers I worked with were actually joking, would legitimately joke around about that because of how easy it makes sense in their economy.
Yeah, I mean, you got the other one, the JBS one. So the meat company was another one recently in the news, and I thought, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I thought there was like a $10 million payment for that ransomware attack to make it go away.
Did they pay in Bitcoin?
I don't know so that one, I don't know about Bitcoin or not.
Okay.
I think there's less details out on that one because it's more recent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's another one where, major meatpacking company, with a lot of subsidiaries got hacked with ransomware. It was a couple of days where they were disrupted. And I think a lot of these companies, it is a business decision. It's not, hey, we shouldn't let the terrorists win, which is kind of the way the government looks at it. But for businesses, it's like, well, if we remain shut down for an indeterminate amount of time, this is how much money we lose. They're asking for X.
Yep. This goes right back to a conversation I've had with a previous boss of mine. As long as hacks are cheap enough, they will continue. And that's what we're starting to see. We're starting to see hacks become public enough and expensive enough. I believe I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're getting to a point where the threshold is going to shift, where companies are going to start taking security seriously.
Mm-hmm.
The examples I use are Target and Home Depot, two big hacks of their day. Oh my gosh, the most credit card numbers exposed in history for each one of them. Or TJ Maxx is another example. If I pull up the stock price for either one of them with when that happened in the middle, you can't find it.
No,
you cannot find the blip that happened. It is that insignificant from a bottom line perspective. And as long as that's the case, these will continue to happen because it's just cheaper to get functionality out than it is to secure it. And so this example is again, when things are getting more public, solar winds is actually much more is in my opinion, a better example where it's that one hit the federal government, right? That hit the federal government. It's impacting, every supplier of software to the government since then.
Yeah, it's not just money then though. It's also national security.
It is very much so. So, but that impact, it hurts. Mm-hmm. Like we're starting to get hacks that to that threshold. Like stealing credit card numbers doesn't hurt the company that you get it from. It really doesn't. I wish it did. Like we can argue PCI DSS till we're blue in the face. It doesn't hurt the companies that get hacked. But when we're getting to a point now where, you got oil companies that were shut down, that impacted a large chunk of the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Consumers. My aunt was impacted. She wasn't sure she could get home because she had to come here for a funeral, and she flew back to she lives in North Carolina on the Outer Banks. Yep. And she's like, her husband couldn't get gas to pick her up.
Like, you didn't put it in a garbage bag like everyone else.
Yeah. But like I said, I think we're getting to that threshold where pain is getting big enough where security is going to start being taken seriously in the enterprise, which in my eyes, while these hacks are bad, the result is good. Like PCI DSS was light years ahead of where anything else was. It gives a laundry list of these are the things you need to do. But it is still self-regulation. There's all kinds of loopholes. Like it's not an ideal situation.
Have a bite, don't
get me wrong. Yeah, it definitely has bite. It's definitely better than anything out there by far.
And I get training, so it makes that much of a.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I worked for a company that did audits, right? So like, it's light years ahead. But for example, HIPAA has IT security pieces in it, but again, nobody cares. Like it's not as diligent as PCI DSS.
Well, Josh, I mean, you work in a government institution. Has there been any sort of thing on your end that you've been seeing that you can talk about around security?
If you tell him, he'll have to kill
Probably
us.
not.
Yeah, not really.
He can neither confirm nor deny.
Twice.
The only thing I can say from my realm is that we know that, PII is a big deal. You're not supposed to have PII anywhere because just in case something does happen. I mean, that's the biggest part of attention.
That is another way to deal with it. Like we have nothing of value.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that does make the point, though. I mean, it is really an economics thing, right? So I mean, the hacks, if they're cheap enough, companies make that
just pay
economic decision to pay. But in the end game, if I'm a security company and I can sell you security that's going to make the probability of that payout go down for cheaper, yeah, as a company, I'm more likely to say, hey, let's secure our stuff. Let's go through these steps and do it so we can prevent it. Because, any of this ransom paying, any additional money companies pay on security, at the end of the day, that's going to hit consumers. I mean, the more the companies pay in these ransoms, it gets baked into the product, or it comes out of insurance, which then the rates go up, and then it still hits the consumers. So,
so the example you used was a good example, right? The meatpacking company, right? Mm-hmm. $4.4 million ransom was paid.
Yep. Okay. It's 4.4.
Right. That's again. So there's this balance, right? There's this balance of big enough for me to risk my neck to do the hack in the first place, but low enough, a small enough amount where you're going to cut the check.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to cut the check to make me go away as opposed to hunker down and fight me. Like you want that as a hacker. I want that to be at the right point. Like the oil company one, there's no reason they couldn't have asked for $1 billion. Right.
Yeah.
And then they would have hunkered down and be like, call the feds. Let's go after this guy. Like,
they did
we're
that anyways,
but find him.
They did because of infrastructure and whatnot. Like they kind of had to. But the catch is they still paid it.
They did.
Like they still paid it. And to my knowledge, the fugitives are still out there. Like they haven't caught them.
Yeah,
like, don't get me wrong. They're looking over their shoulder for the rest of their lives, but they haven't caught them yet.
I'm just not sure how. I mean, obviously I don't have the mind of a criminal. I'm just not sure how these people get away with this stuff. I mean, you're cutting them a check. You're giving them money, transfer probably over the wire.
Bitcoin.
I know it's Bitcoin, but there's got to be some way to trace that. You would think.
So you can
recover it.
Yeah, you can trace the coins. You can't trace who has it. That's the whole idea. That's why it's anonymous, and that's the whole idea. So they were able to recover the 63 bitcoins, 63.7 bitcoins, because they can trace that. Okay, this coin went from here to there. Like,
right.
That's my coins. You need to give me that back. But they can't identify who that other person is.
Not directly. I mean, so like anything in this realm, whether you're dealing with organized crime or anything like that, you're following the money, because even if you can't trace the inbound, you can trace once they start spending it. Once you start seeing large sums of money coming out of places that large sums of money isn't supposed to be.
But that being said, that goes back to the whole, that's the reason a lot of this happens in Russia.
Sure.
So Russia, this kind of thing, they're not going to extradite. And you're talking about, a year in prison at best. At worst, a year in prison. Like for a couple $1 million. Yeah. Like that's
that economy.
When you consider where these guys are coming from, like that's a gamble they're willing to take.
Sure. And you have, sanctions, that the United States has put on their country. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see how the Russian government might be disincentivized. Oh, it's a U.S. company. Well,
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, all of the cyber attacks between Russia and U.S., just from a political perspective, like Putin has no reason to de-incentivize anybody that wants to attack the U.S., right now.
Well, I mean, he may. I mean, I guess it depends.
Why?
So, I mean, our typical response to some of these attacks, what we've done is we've sanctioned. We've sanctioned government officials, and we've waited for some type of behavior change. Now, I think it's fair to say, has that been effective yet? I haven't seen any evidence that it's been effective.
And I know
but it does. I do think there is a government factor to this, because I think at the end of the day, the criminals know they're not going to get caught, or that there's not going to be any punishment from the host country. You're not getting to the root of the problem, because if it were, I mean, it was funny. It actually came up. So Biden and Putin had their meeting today,
right?
And Biden actually raised, hey, well, what would happen if a U.S. hacker would have shut down your oil fields? He didn't say what Putin responded to that. But in this country, you go to prison, and not for a year. I mean, you may come out like some of the guys that do hacking. You have a security consulting business for life after you get out of prison, but those guys are in prison for like 15 years.
Yeah, and they can never touch a real computer again for the rest of their lives.
Right? They can do consulting.
Exactly. Only to the government under strict it's. Yeah, they're basically
not as good of a situation. Is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, what is Kevin Mitnick doing these days, anyways?
I think that's it. Catch Me If You Can. I think it's the movie, right? Is that the guy that did the check fraud, or am I thinking somebody else?
So the funny thing of Kevin Mitnick is, Kevin Mitnick is a guy that got he was like the poster child in the late 90s, early 2000s for hackers. He was a guy that actually got nailed hard for hacking. He didn't do anything at a computer. He called up, I believe it was a phone company.
Social engineering.
And got yes, 100%. Yeah, it was a social engineering attack. So he got them to give him a password, and he took over some stuff. But he was imprisoned like for a long time, and it was there was a free Kevin Mitnick like campaign in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a big deal.
Well, where does that type of movement come from? Is it what did people justify? It was like more of a white hat thing. It's like, hey, I'm just proving you have vulnerabilities and not actually profiting myself, because I think the reason, know what you're talking about, but I don't know the specifics.
Yeah. I think the real issue was the fact that it was a very long, so the problem is you hacked the wrong person or the wrong company. And so little guy big victim. So the victim
going to make an example out of you.
Exactly. So do the charges meet? Does the crime justify the punishment in this case? Yeah, there's debate about that, as well as also at the time, and I don't have all the timeline in front of me. Just the fact that he was being held for a long time between arrest and like they didn't grant bail or anything like that. Like the guy was held for a long time.
I guess the point, though, to circle back to the original point, is you don't hear about that happening to any Russian hackers. Nobody's an example.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, Russian hackers get arrested, and if they're not extradited, it's a slap on the wrist and they're back out. If they're extradited, that's where things get interesting. There was a guy. I'd have to dig up the YouTube videos again. Was it BadB or something like that? He was making all kinds of like anti-US propaganda as well to like drum up. Literally George W. Bush launching nukes, and like it was this crazy flash stuff. I'll dig up the YouTube video. We'll put it in the show notes. But he was a guy that like that was closer to what the U.S. government actually cared about and would push to get extradited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the problem is like if there's not a global solution, then you get this thing where you get a patchwork, and because the internet is the internet, like hackers can just move. Like you can just which was the
you can have proxies to proxies, and you're trying to trace it back. But it's an economics on their side too. It's how much computing resources can I afford to distance myself from the actual hack?
It's not only that, it's also how disciplined are you? Think about the who is the guy behind Pirate Bay? I forget his name.
Yeah.
Literally, the guy made one post before he even launched the site,
and they tracked.
That's what that. So, to be a criminal, you have to be perfect. To be an investigator, you just need one nugget. Like that's literally the dichotomy you're facing here. Like in order to be a successful criminal, you have to be perfect. And in this case, they finally found the one nugget that connected dots to him.
Yeah. Now, what was he like? Like it's interesting because I mean, I don't think it's like you also need to be a good investigator to find a nugget, though. Like,
well, of course. I mean, it took them years to find that one nugget.
Did they ever found out, like, for example, who Shishito was, like the
guy who invented Bitcoin?
Who invented Bitcoin? They had like three like false red herrings.
I don't know. The interesting thing with like finding identities I've found recently is they figured out who QAnon is. BadB, that's the guy. Okay, so I found the I will.
Yeah.
Freddie, please include this.
No.
Yeah.
So it's BadB.
Are we gonna be on a list after this? Like
probably
encouraging hacking. I mean, it's
like so. You probably have having me on this conversation is probably the wrong person to have on this conversation. But so this was a guy that was probably the number one carder stealing credit card ID numbers in the world at the time. But this was some of the propaganda he was putting out at the time. But again, he was arrested. I don't know if he actually like what happened to him.
Now it is interesting. I mean, I'm trying to figure out like if it is a government issue, like like do you just need so and we are saying that not all government is going to agree to have like the same standard because we cannot agree on anything. Like the whole world barely agrees on anything. So the question I have is like is a deterrent to make it expensive enough, even though not everybody is bought in for people to be discouraged for doing this, like either by being anonymous, like Bob said, like by saying like, it's going to cost you this much money to remain anonymous, or is it, or is it a specific solution to this problem, which is sort of like cryptographically secure ways of creating ransomware and
Well, I think so. There's a couple ways to look at it. So if you raise the stakes high enough where the punishment is not worth it for me to act on it, that's kind of like the mutually assured destruction, where it's like, you know what, if you're going to do this and I'm going to get punished really badly for it, that's not a tax on the companies, because the criminals are scared to act because of the punishment. So that doesn't, in my opinion, that's when it doesn't become a cost on the business side. It doesn't, whether they paid the ransom, whether they paid the security company, people don't want to do it because they're afraid to do it. That's the low cost solution to this. The other way is if nobody does anything and it's completely wide open, then as a company, I've got a decision. I can get used to paying ransoms because it's cheaper to pay the ransom, or I can get used to calling those security firms and doing all the work that's required to keep my applications secure enough that the probability that this happens to me drops enough that, it's I'm not worried about it.
If Russia signed an extradition treaty with the United States for cyber crimes, this would dry up pretty quick. I firmly believe it. Like if it was a matter of the United States could say, we want that guy because they hacked our stuff, send him us, and it was a no brainer. Russia would do it. Yeah. The big thing though is we are in a time when bombs and bullets are not the way we fight wars anymore. It's to be effective, at least.
Yeah.
The information and cyber is where the battles will be waged going forward. Putin proved that over the past couple of elections. And because of that, Russia has absolutely no incentive to agree to anything like that.
So there is no way to have something like a Geneva Convention and
I think so. I'm not as pessimistic as that to say they have no incentive. I think to be fair though, you can't say that the ways that we've been disincentivizing it have been effective. I think there are other tools in the tool belt. Maybe there's things we haven't thought of yet to bring them to the table on this. And it could be, hey, we're going to hack you back. And we've got people that can do this too. And I know we'd like to make the thought, hey, this is not fought with bullets anymore. There could be a point where, because we get hacked, we shoot a missile at somebody. And that does actually kind of keep me up.
The catch was we ain't lobbing missiles at Russia. Like
we shouldn't. I'd hope that never happens, but I think there is critical infrastructure that if a country was cornered and where, hey, we've just put a ransomware on your nuclear codes, there could actually be military retaliation.
Oh yeah. If they're attacking the military, yes. Right. Yeah. So, if they're talking military targets, yes. But as long as they're targeting civilian infrastructure, I don't see us lobbing missiles back.
I agree with that. But that's where this could escalate where, okay, well, the US is going to hit back. What are our targets if we hack back first? Right?
Well, my point is, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. My point is, why would they need to? I mean, look at the last election or last couple elections, like information, the spreading of misinformation has been enough to be effective by Russia. And so I don't see why they need to hit anything that would in the common community justify lobbing missiles over. So we're not going to get to that point.
Well, so remember, like there was like the accelerators that were hacked. That was I'm trying to remember who it was. It was in Iraq that there was.
Stuxnet.
Yeah.
So it was a virus that attacked the centrifuges. So basically, it was the NSA has never confirmed that they wrote it, but it was a virus that was conveniently, very specifically targeting this particular model of centrifuges with this particular setup,
like Cisco router, and
exactly. Like it had to go through this path to get
sure.
It targeted these boxes.
And I realize, according to Iran, their nuclear program is peaceful, but if let's say that was considered to be a military installation by them, could that be considered an act of war? I mean, my point is, we're not at that point, I think, where we're talking about lobbing missiles. We're not close to that. Yeah, my point is, I think there is a path of escalation where it's not information anymore. It can turn physical. It's just like any sort of verbal altercation you have with another human being. There's a point where people start throwing punches.
No, like if let's say, for example, like I can definitely see, for example, if you disrupt like the stock market, right? Like traders or exchanges, that has a huge economic impact in very little time. That almost requires a government response of some kind, not necessarily physical, but it can be very dangerous very quickly. And I think the advantage of it is how easy you can disavow. Like, oh, it was a group of hackers.
It wasn't us. Yeah. Sure.
Right. Yep. And that's the thing is right as of right now, Russia's stance for most of this is like it's a bunch of punk kids.
And it could be true. I mean, again, unless you have,
but there's the incentive, right? Like so Russia has no incentive to disincentivize those punk kids to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fair not to call it a government-run hacking program if that's the case, but at the same time, you're enabling. It. So is there? I guess that's the point of resolution I want to get to. Is there a way to do this where it doesn't come down to the U.S. saying our government has come back to you, or the U.S. starts incentivizing local hackers to hit Russia back? Are we going to play that game too? Is that how this is going to work? It's going to be Afghanistan where it's like, hey, we're going to pay rebels and give them missiles. And
I have a hard time believing we haven't done something. Like it blows. I have a hard time believing that we haven't done something in retaliation that we just haven't heard about.
We just haven't. Yeah. Sure. That's entire. And again, I'm not trying to allude that we haven't done anything. I guess my point is it going to be, we're playing the same game where it's like, oh no, it's not the United States. It's these bad people that live in California.
What are they doing with military grade code?
Yeah. They've military grade encryption on your,
on your gamer box.
Right?
Wait, there's no such thing as military grade encryption.
We hit your top vodka distillery. What do you say to that? I mean,
yeah, right.
They say they'll get Grey Goose from France. Like, what else?
I think we just need to build a big firewall around everything.
Oh boy.
so the thing I was thinking
follow all the US.
It's like going to the very, very narrow ransomware route, right? Like that does have a solution. Like it almost feels that like there could be a cottage again, or there is already a cottage industry, and I don't even think it's a cottage industry. It is actually a big industry for like disaster recovery, right? Like the challenge with ransomware was that you are backing up encrypted stuff. But I bet like it's probably not that hard to know, for example, when you're creating these backups, that the stuff, the distribution of bits looks definitely not random.
Sure. I thought you were going to go down the quantum computing path. It's like we can just crack it once we get quantum computing.
Well, I mean,
then we have other problems. But I mean, I think that's probably true, though, Freddie. I think like when you start talking about, well, your data changed, and if I run a hash or a detection algorithm, on what type of file this isn't a Word document anymore. This is something else. Like
it almost feels that it like in retrospect, it looks maybe it isn't, right? But it looks somewhat easy because if you have a perfect backup, right? Like let's say that the Colonial pipeline, they discovered it today that, we had ransomware, and yesterday they have their backup from yesterday at 6 p.m. right? Like in theory, they could have just like roll back to yesterday for all computers, and
you could just set a threshold. Like this is a threshold for a diff, right? Like anything more than this that changes, it's probably ain't right. I mean, that's exactly all joking aside. It's actually what Spring Batch does. So we have the idea of skipping records, right? We require you to set a skip limit. The reason we do that is because if every record in the file is messed up, there's probably something bigger wrong, and you should look at it.
Yeah.
So it's the exact same problem.
Anything that goes into C:/Windows, or user like those are like, you should be very suspected that changes more than 1%.
But I think
that's why Time Machine's better. They don't not back up the operating system.
But I think a lot of the suggestions where you're making are things that they could be getting from security companies and engaging in products that are out there. And it just could be the economics of it is these companies didn't see the stuff coming and weren't spending the money to do it. Because I've been involved at companies where it's just like, well, we could make this more secure, but we'd rather ship the thing and make the money from shipping the thing than wait to fix everything. And we'll get to that later. And
I'm going to make more money off the feature than I will. I'm going to make more money off the feature than I will off of than I would lose by
better security.
Yep. So I could do the diff on the file record, to do this, but that I got to write that code, or I have to buy that product, or I have to integrate with that product, and I just want to ship. The economics is going to move it to where, okay, we're going to slow it down and make sure that we do that. On the companies that have gotten burned, but are companies going to become proactive as a result of this? I don't know.
Or is there like a government incentive program for this type of like security? I think paying farmers to grow crops that they like
that they destroy.
Yeah.
I think like I said at the outset of this conversation, I think the stakes are slowly getting higher and higher for each one of these hacks. And I think we are getting closer to a threshold where
everybody gets like, okay, we're out, we're paying for this.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're getting closer to a threshold of this is not just cut the check and we'll move on. Like when you're talking about national infrastructure, when you're talking about PR, you're talking about all like this is, we're not talking about just the general consumer anymore that lost $20 or has to get a new credit card number. Like we're talking about, potentially millions of dollars in lost revenue because oil wasn't pumping for a few days. Like that one hurt. That exactly. And so like, as this escalates, there's going to be this cross of a threshold. Don't get me wrong. Hackers always want to stay below that threshold. They always want to be like, we're going to get the most out of you and have you still cut the check? Like that's what we want. That line. Exactly. Stay below the line. But there's definitely an escalation that's happening that is going to, at some point, inevitably cross that line. And I believe.
And I wonder, like in that vein, us as developers, right? Like, or at least most of the people that listen to this podcast, how can we sort of like help that cause of avoiding the hurt? I'm just trying to think definitely don't skim on your training, I guess, at the very least, or being informed of these things. Writing secure. And the thing is, like, how does ransomware get in, right? Like a lot of it is
people. And that's the other problem is, and I'm not saying that this is what happened, but the phrase "you can't secure stupid," like phishing links, like that's how this stuff happens. It's not somebody didn't automatically
upgrade a live
hack Tomcat and uploaded this rant. Like no, somebody clicked on a bad link.
Yeah,
I don't even need to read.
Go ahead, Michael. Sorry, I thought you were finishing.
I'm 99% sure I don't even need to read the article to know that's how this happened. Like that's what happens in these scenarios. Somebody clicked on a bad link, they opened a bad PDF, something along those lines, and it happened. I've seen it before. That's how most of the stuff happens. You can't. So people are always going to be the weakest link of this. We can talk about secure software until we're blue in the face. People will always be the weak link here.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. And I guess the thing that I see, that's maybe a little bit different than how hey, let's train, let's look at it. And it's actually a very simple thing that I think is pushing this past the threshold that is going to lead to this, getting fixed, is that companies are like, the impact is being seen, but companies are also talking about it. I mean, one of the worst things that happened is people buried the stuff and they kept it private and nobody knew it was happening. The fact that it's getting into the news and it's now on people's radars because companies are maybe getting hopefully less afraid to admit, hey, we got hacked and we have a problem. Let's admit that we have a problem and that we need to fix it. That's probably the biggest thing that's going to drive this to get looked at, is because, you look at the past 20 years, companies got hacked and nobody said a word, and they tried to bury it as quickly as they could.
But I thought it was legislation where they have to declare, like I guess for PII.
There are, but trust me, there's places that if they can get away with it, they will.
And I thought there were penalties for not declaring those things.
I'm sure there are. That also may be an economic decision. Interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean it's so in that sense is sort of like being comfortable is not the right word, but it's understanding the reality that this could happen to the best of us, and we're living in a place where there's an incentive structure that is very hard to tear down for hackers to try to hack, and companies need to be aware that like Michael said, that humans are the weakest link. I still keep getting my emails like, oh, you need to reset your password. We've been contacting you, or your mailbox is full. Click here.
Rotate your creds.
I got the phishing email the other day that the phishing training that my company does, and forwarded to the spam. They're like, congratulations, you caught a phishing attempt. Like, yeah, it wasn't that obvious, but like.
No, there was
my DEF CON pass. Thank you.
So I got this one. I got which other ones?
I love the phone calls.
So a conference everybody should go to. By the way.
Oh, DEF CON.
Yeah, everybody should go to DEF CON once. You will never look at anything we work on the same way again.
It's like, are you supposed to take like a burner phone and a burner laptop just in case? Like,
turn anything with a radio frequency, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, like shut it all down.
And even
do not connect to it. And I'm not even talking about the conference. I'm talking about if you're in a hotel, like
or on a plane.
Seriously, so my first time there, that we were sent a letter I was sent by my company. We were sent a letter about a story about a client that we sent the year before. Mm-hmm. And the year before, that client, his phone was hacked on the plane ride there. Like it's as soon as you are en route to DEF CON, you are in the most hostile territory you will ever experience. I mean, we joke around about hackers. There are guys walking around with backpacks with giant antennas sticking out of their backpacks. Like, you have no idea. I mean, this literally brings together some of the best hackers in the world to share secrets and play. Like, it's anything you bring there, just assume it's garbage by the time you get back.
Awesome.
That being said, that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to go.
Exactly.
I want to get scared, right? That's essentially. But all right. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I guess it's a new reality, right? Quantum computer will throw a different wrinkle to it when it comes down to it. But there's going to be still hacks on quantum. So I guess, just be vigilant. Don't be the weak link. And if you have in a position to like either send or attend, one of these conferences, go to change the perspective. I guess that's what Michael is suggesting.
DEF CON, actually, one of the cool things about the conference is they put all the content available for free online later. Yeah. So highly recommend checking out all that stuff. It's all defcon.org. Highly recommend checking out. They have all of the archives, have everything. Highly recommend.
All right. Well, And with that, I think we are done with this OffHeap episode. All right. Well, Freddie signing off.
All right. This is Bob signing off. No more secrets.
No more secrets.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. Follow us on Twitter at OffHeap. Thank you for those of you who have followed us. We finally broke the 1,000 follower mark. And if you are checking us out on YouTube, be sure to
like and comment.
Yes, like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes. All right.